Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Totally Baseless, episode 13. And with me today is the co-founder of BallNine, my battery mate from the 1986 world champion, I guess, Indians.
Yeah.
Why not? And he has brought you 200 installments of the BallNine staple, Spitballin. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, Rocco Constantino's here. Rocco, how are you, my man?
Doing good, Chris. How's it going? Thanks for having me on here. Awesome stuff.
Of course, man. Of course. I mean, it's a milestone, and obviously, we tend to do things for the spitball and milestones. 100th one we had Louis Tiant, 150 we had Fred Lynn, and 200. I don't know. I guess nobody called back because you had me. So it was fun though. It was fun, but I wanted to talk about doing 200 editions of Spitball. I mean, that's a lot. That's, about 5 years worth of stuff, guys that you interviewed, guys that you talked to. And it just kind of started as a goof. And it really, really evolved into something cool. And I wanted to ask you, get you to tell some of our listeners how this started and just, what was the genesis of the Spitballin' empire.
Right. It kind of even goes back before BallNine. I wrote my first book 2015 or 16, and it did okay. And I was ready to do a second book, and my agent was all good with that. And we were bouncing around ideas, and I said, there's a lot of social media presence on a lot of players. Probably reach out and do a tales from the dugout type of thing. Interview guys, maybe get a book of 20 or 30 longer form interviews, and it might be pretty good. And agent kind of said that sounds more like a web series. And then my next book went in a different direction, and I kind of put that on the back burner. Then fast forward a few years later, and we end up starting BallNine. And we do those first few funny articles with the baseball cards and some other stuff. And then we kind of got to talking about, we started this with the idea to bring fans stories right from the players themselves. And you had already gotten going, I think, with interviewing David Wells,
Yep.
Dave Parker, some of those early guys, great episodes of Tuesdays with Leroy. And I kind of remembered that idea of, letting these players have the chance to tell their stories in a little bit of a longer form written interview. So I texted you that day and kind of said, like, hey, maybe this is something we could do. I try to reach out to some people here and there. Maybe we could do it periodically or something like that. And you said, that's great. We'll do it every Friday. Not knowing how the heck I'm going to get in touch with people every single week, I said, absolutely, let's do it. Let's give it a shot. And it kind of, had a lot of momentum right from the start. We got some really good guests in the beginning stages. Got some great advice from Kevin Kernan about how to streamline things. Really, for those 4 years, we rarely missed a Friday. There was times where things came up or holidays fell on a Friday and we ran a rerun. But for the most part, it's been a solid 4.5 years of every single Friday, a brand new interview with a player, a manager, a umpire, scout, family member of some icon or legend, just digging into every corner of the baseball world, and it's been awesome.
Yeah, I mean, and it's sorry to put the pressure on you about the every Friday thing, man. I don't know.
It worked out though.
Yeah, it did, I mean, I think that's one of the there weren't a lot of good things about COVID, but I think we were kind of benefactors of it. You and I, especially, starting this thing, it nobody had anything to do. So it was great. I mean, guys were, they were sick of sitting at home too. So I mean, if they could talk about baseball for an hour, it kind of worked to our advantage in a weird way. Because they had people actually, some of these guys had nowhere to hide. They it's if you got them, they're like, sure, I'll do it. It'll get me away from having to mow the lawn for a friggin' hour. So why not? But
Yeah, for sure. As some people mentioned that in those early days too, not doing anything. Would love to talk about my career and do that. And then when baseball came back and had all those stupid Manfred rules in there, everybody had an opinion about it. So I'd always
Yeah.
include that in my thing. Hey, do you want to talk about your career? What's going on with baseball now? This and that. And people were looking forward to talking about the state of the game that they all loved and played.
Yep. And and it's great because the guys, and I know, I think I said this in the interview I did with you. The guys, they're just open and they're comfortable because they know we're not giving them gotcha questions. We're not trying to get sound bites. We're just talking baseball with these guys. And the fact that you had 200, well, 199, let's be honest, I don't count. But the fact that you had all these guys talk to you every week, and some of the stuff that you got from these guys, again, the question that Mark Dewey asked you, that you in turn asked me, um, about what did you learn from the whole thing? And in like I said to you, I mean, there's always something to learn. It doesn't matter how long you've been in the game, you don't know everything. It's a cool thing, and this is why I love spitballing, is just because it's just I love when you ask them about their childhoods and how they started in their early memories of baseball. So I'm going to turn it around on you since you did it to me. So, what was baseball like for you as a kid, and what did it mean to you from your childhood on?
Yeah, I have very, very clear memories going back to 1981. And the reason I always remember that is through baseball cards. I have a million 1981 Topps baseball cards, and that's kind of the stuff that I remember. Anybody, I always like kind of joke around. Anybody that was good in 1981, I associate them with being like a Hall of Famer type of player. Steve Stone, Scott McGregor,
Yeah,
Rick Langford had an awesome year. Guys like that, even Cecil Hooper, great guys, great players, but they were, among the league leaders, and they always had that high stature to me. But I really, as a kid, just my dad and my uncle introduced me to baseball
oh yeah,
on my mom's side, my uncle Ray on my mom's side, and they're just bringing me baseball cards, sticker albums. That's the stuff I remember the most. I remember getting the baseball encyclopedia. I still have it, that giant book.
I
It was
remember
basically
that.
a printed version of baseball reference. And I still
Yeah, yeah.
have that. And just flipping through and being fascinated with learning all the teams and all the guys. So that's how I remember, falling in love with Major League Baseball. And then playing wise, we played, Peanut League. I was on the Dodgers. I still have the little 1981 Dodgers baseball card that had it's my favorite player, Reggie Jackson, listed on the back.
I think mine said
Um,
that too.
Probably a lot of us did, right?
Yeah,
And but I remember just playing in the neighborhood. We lived next to power lines, and there was a dirt field under all the power lines, but enough space to have a baseball field for kids. Um, and I just came from a family that loved baseball on both sides, so it was pretty destined. Kind of what I tell people is, and I still have this too. When I was born, my I believe it was my uncle Duke, who
yeah, yeah,
very well or knew very well.
yeah.
I believe he was the one that brought a baseball to the hospital and had my whole family sign it.
Oh wow.
So I was born basically. I tell people I was born with a baseball. And I still have that too. So, um, and then just growing up, we playing. I love playing Peanut League, and then Farm League. We moved on, played with the Indians,
Yep.
and it was some of the best memories of my life. Playing pickup ball or pickup games in Belleville, and then playing at Belleville High. Um, just so many great memories playing ball with so many great friends.
Yeah. I mean, I miss the pickup games too. We used to play. It didn't matter how many people you had, and you just found a place. I mean, I know
Right.
because I grew up by school number 10, and we had this just brick wall, and there was a strike zone spray painted on it, probably from 1968, that was still there. And we used to get those sponge balls, and we would just, and there could be three of us. Somebody would pitch, somebody
Yeah.
would hit, somebody would try and run around and catch everything. But there was a little wall, then there was a giant hill, then there was a fence. And so obviously on the hill's a double, top of the hill's a triple, over that big fence is a home run. I think I broke a window once. I mean, who didn't? But I mean, that's something that it's I don't know. I don't know if that happens anymore. I don't see kids
Yeah.
out. I don't see kids. There's a baseball field right down at the end of my street, and I have never seen anybody even playing catch. People are walking dogs, people are jogging, people are throwing footballs around. I mean, my nephew and my brother-in-law come over, and we'll go out there and practice, you know, having them feel grounders or having them hit. But I don't know. Yeah, I think we were lucky in that regard where baseball was still king when we were kids, and I think that's what carries into something like spitballing. And I think it shows in the love that you have for the game from when you were a kid till now. It shows in each of the interviews. And you could tell by the way these guys speak to you and the way that they answer you, and they don't bullshit you. I mean, they're just, they see that. And I think that that's something that's really, really special about it. And I really, really enjoyed it. And being that you do ask these guys about their childhoods and how they started, getting in love with baseball and playing baseball, you know, I'm sure you have a couple good ones, a couple good answers about those. So I'm going to let you.
There you go. Yeah, always great answers. The majority of them is pretty much the typical childhood that we had. They maybe had older brothers that they played with, or somebody that they looked up to, and things like that. A lot of them had parents or fathers who played either minor league ball
Yeah,
or high level ball, and some major leaguers. I interviewed their sons, so a lot of them were born into it. Some of the more interesting ones, I still it was Bob Kelly, the pitcher for the Reds and the Cubs. That guy that's like
yeah,
95 years old, 98
yeah,
years old or something.
yeah.
And I asked him who his favorite player was growing up, and he said Lou Gehrig.
That's
It
unbelievable.
just, to me, it's how do you, I'm talking to somebody who was following Lou Gehrig as a kid. That just doesn't compute to me. Um, and a guy Ray Crone, he played. He's another guy over 90 years old, and his favorite guy growing up was Marty Marion, and he was
Yeah,
talking about how when he was a kid, all his favorite players went away to fight in World War II. I mean, like again, that this is stuff that's ancient history to me,
yeah,
and sitting there, people, talking to people who experienced it. And another interesting one too was Gene Locklear. He was on the Padres, a very famous painter actually, but he's one of those guys in the group of pensionless ball players. I just asked I asked the kind of the routine questions always. What was your childhood like with baseball? I said, and he kind of, not that he snapped at me, but he kind of like was, do you know who I am? Do you know anything about my background? And I, kind of got taken aback. And he's like, I'm an Indian, and I knew all that stuff, and grew up a Native American Indian. But he said he was baseball. He's like, we didn't have a TV or radio. We had dirt floors in my house, and he was going on that thing. He was telling the story about he like for him it was a treat to have a piece of gum, and he liked having that so much that he would chew on his gum, and when he was done with it, he would put it in the freezer, so he could chew it again the next day, and he would just chew his gum, so it would be so he going into all that, and he's like, so you think I cared about what Mickey Mantle was doing somewhere, and all that stuff, and I was like, all right, sir. That was a great interview from there, but just put things in perspective that people have different backgrounds and different childhoods and stuff.
absolutely. And I mean, I remember when you sent that over, and like you kind of feel a little bit of it. That's it is just written, and I'm like, oh, this is kind of intense, man. I was like, it's not exactly the feel good hit of the summer, but I mean,
Right, right.
but that's the thing too. They don't all have to be, I mean, everybody's story is different, and everything is. It's there's no cookie cutter story. There's no one path to the major leagues, and that's what I love that that you get out of these guys. Um, and I always loved when you spoke to the old timers. Did you interview Roy Face?
No, I called Roy Face and he yelled at me. He said, "How'd you get my number?" And I forget how I even got it. Somebody given it to me, and he kind of um, was taken aback, and I kind of talked to him a little bit. He wasn't hanging up on me or nothing, but we were kind of talking a little. And then he eventually said, all right, listen, you call me back tomorrow at this time and we'll do this. And I called him back and he just ghosted me. He didn't answer. And that was it. But I did get yelled at by Roy Page. And then Zerwinski ended up getting in touch with him and he did the whole
That's who
article with,
did it.
with
Yes,
Zerwinski.
Zerwinski got in
Yeah,
touch,
yeah,
and I guess he didn't yell at Zerwinski, but somebody hung up on
yeah.
Zerwinski. Boog Powell,
Yes.
I
Oh,
think he said,
yeah.
yeah, Boog Powell and Dave Kingman got all pissed off at him too. It just, yeah. So So I mean, it's not just you. Obviously,
Uh,
that's I don't envy that part of it. I just have to just
mhm.
edit it and make it look nice. You guys have to incur the wrath of guys like Roy Face and Boog Powell. So
Right.
better you than me, I guess. But and another thing that you do at the end of your interviews is you ask these guys about reflections on their careers, and some of them are just so uplifting and great. And there've been a couple where it's like, damn, man, like, as we know, Father Time's undefeated, everybody retires, and you get a lot of those stories. So I mean, what stuck out to you over the last few years about that?
Yeah, most of them, most of the players are like super humble about it, and they're able to reflect and be like, "Man, as a kid, I dreamed of being a major leaguer, and I made that happen, and that's
Yeah,
awesome." And that's kind of, very grateful and very humble. Um, One that really stuck out to me was Josh Booty, the old
yeah,
multi-sport star who was supposed to be, possible number one pick overall in baseball and football. It was in the Bo Jackson era. He was a
yep,
quarterback.
two sport, yep.
Um, and he didn't work out in either sport. I mean, there people were talking about, almost being a Hall of Famer in both of those sports, having that kind of talent. Um, and he was a great interview, and he had such an awesome, honest reflection about, trying to do too much and trying to take a football mentality into baseball. And he wasn't like bemoaning that he wasn't I don't like using the word bust, but he didn't reach those levels that people said. He wasn't a bust because he went in there, he played. I think he was the opening day
Played a
third
few games
baseman
for the
for the
Marlins, yeah.
Marlins ever. Yeah, I think it was
The
their
third
opening.
baseman, right?
Yeah, but just the
Yeah,
way he approached that answer and like, it really stood out to me with that. That was kind of one that was really great. And even talking to Lyle Overbay too, that one stood out because
that was a good
he
one.
got pretty emotional. Yeah, he got pretty emotional about it, and you could tell he was getting choked up. And like you said, it was cool to be able to have that kind of trust in a player where he was clearly an emotional topic, and
Yeah,
he's still getting through the answers and kind of getting choked up that way. But yeah, I just saw a lot of great reflections on that.
yeah. I always liked Lyle Overbay. I thought he
I was psyched up to interview him. He was a
yeah,
great,
that
great
was a good
guy to
one. When you
talk
told
to.
me that you got Lyle Overbay, I was like, right on, man, Lyle. That's
Yeah.
awesome. By the way, speaking of Josh Booty, have you heard of his nephew, who has
I have.
probably the best sports name, the best quarterback name of all time?
Well, I know he's playing now, and I know he's got the great name. Is it what's it like, Captain Booty or something? Or
General Booty.
General Booty. That's it.
Yes.
Right.
So and I saw that a couple days ago, like General Booty. So I made the mistake of just in anyone listening, it's okay more or less if you Google General Booty in public. Not that much weirdness came up, but you will see a couple things that you probably don't want to. But General Booty, I don't know why. I just had to bring that up because come on, man, who doesn't like to say General Booty? But what were some of your favorites? What were some of the favorite interviews that you've done? I mean, you've done a ton of them. I know the first one you did was Al Ferrara, right? That was
Yeah,
where it started, and he was on Gilligan's Island.
yeah, and it was phenomenal. Just talking to him, and that kind of spurred it on. He was the first one. I'm like, I'll try it, see what happens. And he was so great, such a nice guy, talking about awesome stuff. That was memorable, and that gave me some momentum going forward. Like you said, all the old timers were great. Talking to George Altman recently. I mean, he played for the Kansas City Monarchs. He's 90 something years old, and was the first right fielder at Shea Stadium for the Mets. Stuff like that was great. Some of the real memorable ones were talking to the family members of some of the legends. Talking to Billy Martin's son,
Sean Gibson, yeah,
Sean Gibson, Josh's great grandson. But the Billy Martin one was awesome, and,
that was
and even
great.
that, I remember him talking, he's talking about his father dying and telling me stories about how Mickey Mantle would take him to dinner a couple times a month just to make sure, he was doing okay with everything and staying on the right track. And
Yeah,
it was really cool to talk about that. And, awesomeness. Mike Beck about Disco Demolition Night. That was incredible. And what his father was like, and dive into what Bill Beck was like as a person. That was just awesome too. And then, I also, a couple guys have passed away that I've interviewed,
yeah.
sadly. And unexpectedly too, guys like Tom Browning or David McCarty. So you interview them, and they pass away not that much longer, and they're a couple of the last interviews maybe that they've ever done. So that's important to me. And I always, the big names, Louis Tiant, Fred Lynn, awesome like that. Rocky
Oh yeah,
Colavito. I mean, that's
that was
incredible to
great.
me that, yeah, able to, and he doesn't do very many interviews. Then he told me he was going to give me 5 minutes because Jim Gentile referenced me to him. And I tried to make the most of that 5 minutes, and he enjoyed it. And we ended up doing a whole half hour, 40 minutes or so. So that was really memorable. And I really enjoyed talking to the Mets,
Yeah.
guys that I grew up watching, and even some of the 69 Mets, talking to Art Shamsky, a guy I never saw play, but a guy, my uncles talked about all the time, and you always hear about on the Mets games. So, I mean, just every guy was just phenomenal to talk with. And they always would get off the phone just shaking my head. And yeah, I text you right away, hey, Don Slaught was unbelievable. Hey, Paul Zuvelli was great. Jim Sundberg was awesome. That was
Yep.
cool. And one really cool thing I thought was great too was when Rico Bronya just
Oh
emailed
yeah.
me randomly. I'm not even my BallNine email. He was reading these articles and he really liked them, and he sent a really nice email just saying, "Hey man, I came across your stuff. It's awesome. Keep it up." And that's all. I invited him for an interview, and we talked and did that. So that was really cool. Just that somebody that I really liked. Who doesn't like Rico Bronya?
You have to love
Um,
Rico Brody.
right? You gotta, especially as a Mets fan and a Phillies fan. But yeah. So I mean, so many, and then it's we can go through just about all of them.
Oh yeah. You know which one I really enjoyed too was maybe it's just because, excuse me, when I was a kid, I remember seeing him go on David Letterman, Buddy Biancalana. And that
Right.
was always like, that was just such a weird thing. I mean, it's what was the David Letterman thing with Buddy Biancalana? It's like he had like a little calendar, like
Right. I forgot exactly what some kind of gimmick that he was doing while he was tearing it up in the '85 World Series, and
yeah,
then all of a sudden he had him on the show, and I asked him about that, and and it was interesting that he and talking to Buddy Biancalana about being that dominant. Like literally, he said like that's the only stretch I ever played awesome in my major league career, and he's like I was in the zone, everything was in slow motion, and he's actually like gone on to study that and how athletes get in the zone and how that happens, why things could slow down, um, and athletes get hot or cold mentally, and he's made a whole career out of that. So I thought that was really interesting.
yeah. That one was great, and he actually Buddy Biancalana had a great Bob Shepard voice too.
Right,
I used to
exactly.
love when they would come in and just Buddy Biancalana. But you have a couple that you've done, which I like to call the guys that were in every pack of baseball cards that you ever got. I mean, when I was in Cooperstown the other day, I mean, there are certain guys, I mean, I without fail that you got. I mean, I got three Gary Wards, just again. But Don Slaught was one. I mean, you had Don Slaught. How about those guys? I mean, how does it feel as a card collector? When these guys that you would you're like, oh man, another Don Slaught, and then all of a sudden you're interviewing this guy. I mean, what's going through your mind when you're doing that? Like I can't believe this shit. This is bizarre.
Yeah, and I say it all the time. It's like this whole experience has been like talking to my. I wrote one of the articles coming up. It's like going up in my attic and talking to my baseball cards, and they're talking back to me, and I don't even got to take LSD about that. Um, so that so it's been like, and those are guys are awesome, and it's been cool to tell them that. Like Pat Combs, he was a big prospect, and right in the heart of our collecting days. So you got a million Pat Combs cards because he's gonna, you're gonna retire on that. And then asking him years later about the card craze, about the Pat Combs card and cards and stuff like that. And there were a few guys I asked about their baseball cards and that were hot prospects or things like that. And it's cool. A lot of them talk about still getting cards in the mail, and they're still grateful. People look for their autographs sometimes, and it's interesting like that. So everybody's got a story.
And everybody has a great story. One of my favorite stories um, was I know well, you interviewed Sid Bream, but you interviewed Mike LaValliere too, right? I mean, so
Right.
each one of their opinions on the slide. And there's like three sides to every story. But
Right. It's kind of like our childhood's Yogi Berra, Jackie
Jackie
Robinson play.
Robinson. Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
Because Mike LaValliere says he got him. Mike
Yeah.
LaValliere says Sid Bream's foot popped up and never touched home.
I don't know, man. He looked out to me, but that's one of my favorite things about Spitball, and is it's just the fact you get to talk to these guys, and it's just nostalgic. It's really, really awesome. And 200 guys, I mean, that's it's not easy to do. So I don't know where you
No,
kept getting these guys from. I mean, at one point, I'm like, is he just making this stuff up? Like,
and I think I mean, I had to contact over 1,000 players because it's, to get one or two guys, you got to contact 10 or 20 of them, so it's, and then, a lot of them set it up and just didn't, they fell through and stuff like that happens. Um, I mean, it just, I feel like any guy still alive, I was still trying to contact.
since we're talking about baseball cards, I know you have in your possession right now a pack of 1983 Fleers. Now, want to open a pack of baseball cards for spitballing's
Yeah,
sake, and let's see if anybody's in there that you interviewed.
still sealed 1983 Fleer. And yeah, my premise is that there's going to be somebody in here that I've interviewed or tried to interview or talk about. So let's see what happens here.
All right,
All right. Royal sticker.
nice, good sticker.
Let's see. We're going through. We start with Pete Ladd. We have Greg Minton, who I said as my
Already?
hypothetical person. Yeah, second guy, Greg Minton.
You said that before we started.
Right, I did. And I've tried to reach out to him, and I actually found contact info for him. He runs a facility, but never could get a hold of him.
Oh
Next one's
man,
Joe Morgan.
Joe
Nice.
Morgan.
Giants. Don Baylor passed away. Bill Buckner passed away. Neil Allen, very
Yeah,
interesting one with Neil Allen. I interviewed Doug Sisk from the '86 Mets.
yes, you did.
Um, and Sisk caught a lot of grief from people, including me, as Mets fans, because he had some injuries and he wasn't as effective as he could have been. And he always said he was honest. I was always upset about the way Mets fans treated me. But then he said later on, Frank Cashin told Doug Sisk at some reunion of the '86 Mets that Sisk pitched so well in I think it was '83 or '84 that it gave Frank Cashin enough confidence to trade Neil Allen away to get Keith Hernandez back in return.
Wow.
So Doug Sisk said that Neil Allen, because he was a big young, great, very good young pitcher.
Yeah.
So Sisk said he finally felt like he really contributed to that '86 Mets team by finding
Awesome.
out. So there's a good Neil Allen story for you.
Excellent. Excellent.
Dave Dravecki, tried to contact him, never got an answer. Juan Eichelberger,
Well, Eichelberg.
don't know where in the world he could be right now. Jerry Remy passed away.
Yep.
Bob Horner, again,
Bob
reached
Horner.
out,
Did
found
you?
contacts. No,
Oh,
I didn't, but I
Zerwinski
think
got him too.
Zerwinski did. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
Zerwinski got him. John Stupor, I had interviewed him for my book, but couldn't get him for a Spitballin. And then we got Gary Renicky and Al Woods. So Renicky, I reached out with, but never got a hold of him either. So we got a good Neil Allen story out of that pack, and
Excellent.
Joe Morgan.
And a Greg Minton.
And a Greg Minton. I really said that, yeah, as the hypothetical guy. Crazy. He's nuts too. That's how I was trying to get him. They called him the Moon Man. He, threw like a real heavy sinker. He set a record for, most amount of consecutive innings without a homer. He would have been an interesting guy. He's the exact kind of guy. You get him in every pack of cards. He's a reliever for 1,000 years. Interesting stories, but maybe down the line we'll find Greg Minton.
Yeah. I mean, he had the glasses, he had the mustache, he had the whole 80s thing going, man. I mean, that was, the hat kind of high up on his head. Yeah, I remember Greg Minton well. I have about 1,000 of his cards as well. Since we're coming up against the time here, I want to ask you your reflections on 200 episodes of Spitball. And what's next?
My reflections on it, from a reader's perspective, I hope they learn stuff. We talk about that a lot, about always learning something new in baseball and in life. So it's really cool when I, put out an article and get some comments like, wow, I didn't know that. This is great. I love when people are learning stuff from, being, some of my writing. Um, and then, I also really enjoy the fact, and I hope that, reflecting back, that some of these interviews stick with the players and their families. I got many responses back from players who really liked the interviews. And one of the best compliments I got was my family actually learned things that they didn't know about me. And it happened a ton of times. Um, so that's, when I look back, when I hope the players who participated in those interviews look back, I hope they're reflecting and saying, wow, it was really cool. I'm glad I did that. Because like I said, Fred Lynn gets interviewed all the time, Louis T. There's stuff like that, but there's guys that have been out of baseball 40, 50 years. They have kids and grandkids who never saw them play. Um, and, it's some of these people aren't, I don't want to say forgotten, but, they're not interviewed by anybody.
Yeah.
So, now they're able to, have their career on record there. And I feel like that's, one of the coolest things that came about this.
I mean, I sure hope that the internet Wayback Machine, the Internet Archive, I hope it's getting everything because in case I kick the bucket tomorrow, so this way it's still around. People need to
Uh,
look for it. But listen, man, I want to say thank you for not only doing this, but for doing 200 episodes of Spitballin', man. And you want to tell people about the Stud 400 in case they don't know?
Yeah, no, it's great. Like I was saying today out on social media, I'm not going anywhere. I hope to be writing the BallNine until I can't write no more. And we're doing the Stud 400, which is going on 4 years of doing it. I think still with that as
On and
well.
off, yeah. No, I think it's
Yeah,
only about three,
on and off. Three, yeah, probably three
maybe
on and
three,
off.
two and a half, three. Yeah.
Counting down the top 400 moments in baseball history, something I really, really enjoy. And cool moments too, not just in-game moments. Things like the invention of fantasy baseball and how that impacted things, and the start of the Ford Frick Award and how the announcers are being honored, and little things like that too, and kind of capturing the whole tapestry of baseball and that stud 400. And it'd be great if I still find some more players and interview them in some other type of iteration of spitballing.
Awesome. And I mean, and my favorite and one of the recent Stud 400 is Ty Cobb beating the crap out of a fan.
Right? I mean, how do
Yeah.
you not tell the history of baseball? Well, that's got to be in there, right? And how do you say like, well, Mickey Mantle's 500th homer is more impressive than Ty Cobb going up into the stands and beating somebody up? But that's it's up for debate. There we go.
Hey, that's the whole thing. You're
You
starting
could talk
spirited
about it,
debate. That's all it is.
right?
That's part
Right.
of being a baseball fan. Um, well, listen, Rocco, thanks again for doing this. Thank you for doing 200 awesome spitballings. And if you have only listened to the podcast, go to ball9.com, check out spitballing. It's a rabbit hole that you might want to go down, and we'll see you on the other side. But again, Rocco, thanks for this. Thank you for doing the Stud 400, and thanks for writing up an interview with me that I think you, my mother, and Mark Dewey might have read. But
I think it got a lot of good
yeah,
responses.
I didn't
Anthony,
see anyone telling me to go to hell. So I mean, for once,
no,
yeah. So that's nice.
yeah, and I got to say too, writing 200 spitballings, it took a lot of work and everything, but you did the artwork and edited and published 200 spitballings, and that's an accomplishment too. Going through and fixing my bullshit and making things look nice and tweeting about them. So that's a big thing there too.
Hey, man, we have to work as a well-oiled machine over here. There's
There you
not
go.
many of us, so we have to make it work. There's
Uh,
still a pitcher catcher symbiotic relationship here.
right, seriously.
But again, everybody, thank you. I'm Chris Vitali. Again, thank you to Rocco Constantino. Check out ball9.com. Check out Spitballin'. And we'll be back next week with the new Totally Baseless. Again, Rocco, thanks. You guys out there, thanks. And adios, muchachos.